Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to SPACC Live, Public Policy Conversations. For the next couple of weeks, SPACC will be hosting a series of policy webinars, quick half-hour conversations with East Metro policymakers at multiple levels of government. Questions can be submitted during the webinar by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Our host is Shannon Watson, Director of Public Affairs of the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce. Our featured guest today is Senator Matt Little.
Thanks, Evie, and welcome everybody. It's our pleasure to be here on this rainy Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Sorry.
Who knows?
Senator Little, welcome. According to your Twitter account, the best thing about this is people leaving you alone about your haircut, I understand.
Yeah, this is the first time in my life people have stopped asking me, when are you going to get your haircut? So that's been a real boon to my personal life.
We take what we can get right now, right?
Well, any silver lining right now is worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is a weird legislative session. How's it going?
It's still going, which I guess is kind of the bare minimum as to what I can say. It's just completely and fundamentally altered how the legislature operates right now. Committee meetings are all on Zoom right now, and then even voting, there's a good 1/3 of us most days that are voting remotely, calling in our votes when that has never happened in the entire history of the Senate. So it's different than even if you just look at the Senate floor when we're in session, people are spaced out. So it's altered how we're doing our business, and it's really ramped down the amount of stuff we're able to pass and do this year.
Mm-hmm. How is it personally for you in integrating with your staff? I assume staff are working remotely as well.
Yeah, staff are working remotely. So that's fine. I mean, because, a lot of that work is the same, right? We send each other emails, texts, or calls saying, this is kind of the stuff we're working on and need. And then we get it done. So that kind of feels actually the same in terms of how we do stuff. It's just the not walking the halls, not saying hi to people, not being able to shake hands, make jokes, all those kind of things that take away from kind of the personality of it, I guess, of the legislative process.
Mm-hmm. Are you an extrovert or an introvert?
I think everybody could probably guess what I am, but I'm an extrovert, so I hate this. This is just the antithesis of how I like to live my life and how I like to live my professional life. I like to be with people, and so this is not great from my perspective. I'm not a homebody. I've never been a homebody since I was a kid, so I like being out and about, and I like helping people, and I like being out in the public doing that.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who are in your same boat who are just wrestling with the public health situation and the economic situation and that personal sort of psychological situation. I know the governor talked about that a couple of weeks ago, that's definitely a consideration. Yeah,
it certainly is. It's not the same. It's not the same speaking with people on Zoom or the 5 to 7 minute calls you make to your friends just to check in and see how it's going. I just miss going to restaurants, or just pulling up to the bar and just saying hi to the owners and bartenders and all the people that right, that you are neighbors with. So just a weird time.
Yeah, absolutely. So the legislature has spent a lot of time talking about money, what is traditionally not the budget year. How do you see that conversation moving forward?
I don't think anybody knows with any degree of certainty. Certainly, we've had to scale back some of our future outlooks in terms of what we'll be able to accomplish. There was a surplus projected, but at this point, I don't think anybody believes we'll have a surplus heading into the next biennium when we set the new budget, and we may have to, make up some sort of deficit too. It's just we don't know. We don't know. We know we won't have that big of a surplus, if any, We just don't know how big the hole might be at this point. So it makes budgeting difficult, but I think right now the focus has to be short term. Usually I would say budgeting, you have to have a longer outlook. That's kind of how I operated as mayor, and that's how I entered the Senate with that thinking. But right now we've got to take a 2 to 3 month outlook here and try and help people get through this. So that kind of changes your budget priorities, in my opinion. But that's what I think we've got to do right now.
So this is technically the bonding year. Do you think we're going to get there on that particular bill?
Everybody says they want a bonding bill, and that's what people are saying publicly. So that helps. But being my fourth year in the Senate, I can never. It seems like I can't say anything with 100% degree of certainty. You just can't. But I think there will be a bonding bill? Yes. I think it's one of the cleanest routes to helping to get our economy back up and running as we are trying to come out of these stay-at-home orders and closures. So I think everybody agrees in regards to that. Obviously, you need pretty good bipartisan support in both bodies, both parties and both chambers. So that takes some work to make sure that there's an equitable bill around the state, that helps all Minnesotans, not just focused in certain political districts, I would say. So that's going to take some time to negotiate. But everybody, the leaders of both parties and the governor all want a bonding bill, and I think that is a good thing for us to get done. So I'm hopeful, and I do think we'll have a bonding bill.
Awesome. So while the pandemic has obviously literally changed the world, there were priorities and opportunities that people were working on before this all started. What other things are you continuing to work on?
Yeah, for me, it's become a much more narrow focus. We're less than a month away from session being done. One of my biggest priorities coming into session was to get an emergency insulin bill done. And
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. And we were able to get that done, which was just wonderful that we were able to get that done despite all this. So for me, my number one priority has been accomplished this session. But going back to your last question, I have some basic fundamental needs in my district for infrastructure. So one of my biggest projects is in Randolph, Minnesota, where just about half of their individual septic systems are failing. And so that is going to have some severe consequences, right? And you have to blight homes, you can't sell them. So, you could be less than 10 years away from a city, almost being closed, or a town being closed. So, I've got a bonding bill to get in a sewer treatment, right? Sewer treatment facility in town. That's spendy, and that's something a few hundred people can't afford to do on their own. So it requires a bonding bill. And that's not a story unique to Randolph. That's a story that's happening all around Minnesota, in so many towns and townships. So it's not a unique story, but it's the story in my district. So that's a huge priority for me, to get that bonding bill through.
So you mentioned the insulin bill, and I know that got a little sticky at the end with the partisanship. Are you seeing more of that or less of that? I know it's an election year. Are you seeing, working through this, is that changing at all?
Partisanship itself?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not changing. Insulin just demonstrated that it doesn't seem to matter the circumstances. That is still a deep undercurrent in the Senate right now. The fact that I had to hop off the bill for it to move forward is it's kind of disgusting in my opinion. But that's the undercurrent that's still there. I also have been disappointed that I do feel like people have used the stay-at-home order, the closures, the virus itself, to kind of push an agenda that was previously there, or to try and just damage the governor by making up scenarios that don't exist. And I'm just kind of disappointed at that right now, when we need clear facts out there and when we need clear direction on what the best outcome we can have is. I just think it's disappointing that people are choosing to make up their own facts for partisanship, or to set themselves up for a run later just to get attention. That stuff disappoints me more than anything.
Gotcha. It looks like I'm gonna jump out of the questions for a second.
Sure.
Got a question from an audience member. Lakeville has a couple of large food manufacturing plants. Are you concerned about those businesses having the same issues as the meat processing plants in the southern part of the state?
Yeah, absolutely. Concerned about all my businesses in the district. And I think some people forget, I represent more than Lakeville. I represent Farmington, and I represent 14 townships, 6 small towns, and a piece in Northfield. So we've got, 75% of geographically of my district is agriculture. And I'm really worried about them, dairy farmers, pork producers, and any poultry. It's gutting them. So yeah, I'm definitely worried about them. I'm hoping that, with Governor Walz's announcement last week that we're going to start to get people back working again, that helps the situation. And then a few more weeks out that we can start to see some semblance of normalcy and get people working again.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned you've got a lot of little towns and townships in your district. And before you were in the Senate, you were the mayor.
Yeah.
Are you finding now that there's more coordination between different levels of government, or are you just same level and different topic of conversation?
Same level is really what I'm seeing. The biggest problem the state has is we don't have the resources that the federal government has. So we know what people need. It's just like we don't print money. We can't borrow money on the same level either. So that's been an issue. But I think Deed is probably the best example where there has been some good coordination. I think Commissioner Grove has done an excellent job coordinating with the federal government in terms of getting those programs set up and the loan programs set up. For the timeline he was given, I just think he's done an amazing job to get those systems running. So that's been good coordination. But other than that, right, I mean, it's a pretty clear and direct directive from Governor Walz and the stay-at-home orders that goes right to individuals, right? So it's passing through the legislature, passing through cities. It has direct impact, right? So that doesn't take as much coordination, but I've been proud of our cities and how they've stepped up. They've canceled some of the fees and utility payments. And they've been trying to encourage people to do the social distancing. So I've been really happy with their response so far.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We were pretty heavily engaged in the conversation about property taxes, and how some people were calling for abatements of property tax payments, and some people were like, delay is fine. And the part about that, and maybe I'm making myself look a little dumb here, but the part about that I didn't, think about was that the counties collect all that money, but only a portion of it belongs to them. A portion belongs to the school district and the city and, the Met Council and everybody else who has the taxing authority. So I'd had a conversation with one of the county commissioners, and they were like, yeah, we don't have the ability to waive the property taxes for all of the other taxing districts. We don't have the power.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. So I think a couple of counties have waived any penalties, and hopefully they are solvent enough. I think like the budget conversation at the state level, I think the cities and counties are going to have that same budget conversation, just as the trickle down. Yeah,
it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because that impact will be felt by any entity, public or private. And that's the thing, right? If we were to cancel county tax payments, we're going to have to foot that bill at the state level, and we don't know if we have the money to do that. And if you don't pay for those services, then that has a cost attached to it too. So it's a no-win situation in that regard. But hopefully, like the no penalty thing in some counties will help people, at least buy them some time.
I appreciate that there are still people like you who are running for office and still want to be part of the really hard conversations that are going to come next year. So kudos for that.
Yeah, well, for better or worse, I don't think, we don't run just during the good times. That's a lot of us, right? We're here to help. And so, in some way, like my mantra is the worse it gets, the more reason I have to be there. Because I feel like I can help. I can't solve everything, but we've been able to help a lot of people through this with the loan programs or their unemployment questions, or just saying hang in there. Honestly, sometimes that's what people need to hear. Our friends and family, and that goes for our neighbors and strangers sometimes too, right? And that's how I view the job. So I've been happy to help people how I can. But I'm just sorry we're all in this. We're all in this, and it's gonna take some time to get out of it.
Yeah. So we usually talk about change as a bad thing. I know I like change if I'm doing the change, and if somebody else is doing the change to me, I don't like the change.
Sure.
Has there been anything new or different that you've experienced that might be an opportunity for good change once we're whatever done with this looks like, once we're back to normal?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to my mind when you ask that question is I will never take small talk for granted ever again. I've been trying to limit where I go in public to only where I need to, and I had to go to the bank the other day, and I tell you what, I lingered. Before I would have been in and out, deposit and leave, but I lingered for like 15 minutes just to talk to people, to real people. So I don't know, like I'm hoping that I'll never take that type of interaction for granted again. And just how much it meant, and how it felt to just talk to someone for 10 minutes, about anything. So, we always joke that, Minnesotans, we talk about the weather and all that kind of thing, but I desperately miss that. So I don't think I'll ever take that for granted again. So that's something I feel like, I hope comes out of this. I feel like should come out of this, that we take the interactions, even the small ones between us all, we take that more seriously in a way, Yeah, so I hope that. I do hope the handshake returns though. I built my life around the handshake, so I want it to come back. It means something. It really does. And so I do want the handshake to come back. I hope that doesn't stay gone.
I remember in the first couple of weeks of March, when this all was starting to develop and we were still going to meetings, our team developed what we called because you reach for somebody and it's like, oh no. And so we decided it was the TRex hello. It was like,
yeah, for sure.
Have you noticed and that's the thing, like I spend a decent amount of time on social media. I know you do as well.
Too much. I feel some days.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, is it too much now? Because social it can have a dark side. But I think that the interactions are becoming actually more personal, particularly for the extroverts out there who desperately crave that interaction. I feel like it's been a little more hopeful lately.
Yeah, that might be. I mean, for me, it's been the same. I think it's different when you're not a public figure, right? The interactions are different. Mine have largely been the same, I would say, on social media, for better or worse. I don't know. But I will say generally, I've seen that people are nicer. I think that's fair to say. People have been less harsh to each other, which I'm incredibly grateful for. And I've even seen it on, my Facebook page, where I'll post about something and people will have questions. And before I can even get to it, someone else has answered the question, because either they reached out before and we got them the answer, or they've experienced before. So I just think people being online and helping each other, I mean, that is really one of the first times I've seen that, where people are actively helping each other on my Facebook page, which, yeah, that's awesome. So I do agree with you. I do agree with you that I think people are being nicer and more helpful.
That's good. What was the TikTok thing that you did?
Which one?
I saw there's something a few days ago about you were going to do a TikTok.
Oh, yeah. So, do you have TikTok?
I do not have TikTok.
All right. It's going to be hard to
I'm not cool
explain.
enough for TikTok.
It's going to be hard to explain. So I have TikTok now. We just started it really in February, maybe even March. I don't know. The timeline's so weird, but you know, Gen Z's on TikTok, and I like to go where people are. And so if I want to talk to Gen Z, I got to be on TikTok. We've had good success. I have 58,000 followers now on TikTok. So that's pretty fun. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. So it's just a lot of dumb videos where I set my dignity aside and I just go for it. But, you know, when I have something to say or a point to make, then people listen, right? If you invest the time to be there beforehand. And that's really what I, view social media as one of the main reasons I use it, is to interact with people, but also make a point once in a while. So the other day I did a interview with a Lakeville North class, 9th graders. And so we did that on WebEx, but then I also streamed it live on TikTok because TikTok has a live video function. So took questions from the class, and then when that was over, I took 5 or 10 minutes afterwards to answer the questions that the TikTok users had. So it was good. It was fun. It was just like another way to kind of maximize the impact of outreach.
That's awesome. Did they have good questions? Did they have better questions than me?
There are no better questions than you're currently asking. They had amazing questions. I will say that that it was like a press conference. They had real questions that tackled the issue about how we open back up, if we open back up, or when we open back up, and how we do it. So we got into some level of detail there, and it was impressive. And they just had wonderful questions that if they would have asked those at any press conference, no one would have batted an eye. They were serious. So it was good.
That's awesome. Well, shout out to 9th graders who are paying attention.
Yeah, they were crushing it. So I mean, we did 45 minutes straight, just question after question after question. So it was a marathon, but they did a great job.
That's great. Well, we're going to stop shouting questions at you. And I would like to thank you very much for taking some time out of your day. I know that these are, the last few weeks of session are always a crazy schedule. And this new format just makes it even weirder. So we appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me on. And hopefully we can do this live next year sometime.
Perfect. Deal.
All right, cool.
All right. Thank you so much. Evie, I'm going to toss it back to you.
You're on mute.
Okay.
So
I think
this
we
has
had
been a
something happen to
webinar
Evie.
presented by SPACC.
Awesome. This session was recorded. It will be posted on YouTube. For more information on the SPACC Live, go to our website. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe on social media. Thanks so much. Bye.
See ya.